I promised you one last outing, and one last outing is what I aim to deliver. So please join me as I close out 2018 by highlighting my final thoughts about comics for said year. Now once more under the breach, dear friends. Once more. For now we begin with the worst of the year, 2018. Now it would be pretty simple to just write big events because, come on, that's a nice obvious one. But something else jumped out at me more than just those. Marriages. Now there's really no other way to put it. There was just one marriage I was going to talk about, and originally it was just going to be the Batman marriage, but I kept getting a nagging feeling about another marriage this year, because the X-Men had an equally disappointing and painful marriage. Now, this year saw two marriages come and pass over each other without anything to show for it, mostly. Batman was supposed to marry Catwoman, and Colossus was supposed to marry Shadowcat, and neither of those happened. Oddly enough, because of a blonde friend instilling doubt in the bride, who then deciding at the last moment to call off the wedding at the altar, which in itself is a bad trope with comics, about a doubtful and undecided female. So let's start with the DC couple. Without going into it too much, Selina just doubts Batman can be happy and be Batman at the same time. Or maybe more that Bruce Wayne can't be happy and also be Batman, and basically chooses not to marry Bruce in doubt that Gotham will lose a protector if she marries him. So when Selina breaks Holly out of Arkham, so there's a witness to the bride's side, Holly instills doubt by talking about how Batman always needed to have that pain to do what he does. And then later on comments about how Selina sorta has to be the good guy now. This problem for me is compounded with how Bruce is given a somewhat similar choice when Alfred asks him, "Are you sure?" and comments Bruce must be happy going forward. In the end, Batman decides that he can still be married, while Catwoman decides that she cannot because Gotham needs Batman. On the X-Men side is a couple of mutants almost as iconic as Scott and Jean or Gambit and Rogue, Kitty Pryde and Pyotr Rasputin. Kitty decides not to marry Colossus after a small talk with her future sister-in-law and friend, the very blonde Illyana, when she reveals her own doubts about the relationship, basically saying if Kitty and Pete were meant to be together, they would already have been, which in turn has Kitty questioning the marriage completely. Where Catwoman showed up and just took off beforehand, Shadowcat phased through when Colossus tried to put the ring on her and then just kinda left. See where I was having trouble talking about one without talking about the other, because there's two women with cat in their name who are marrying two men with large and durable bodies. Yeah, okay, I sort of reached to make that connection. Now both had ups and downs in their respective series, and the X-Men one I'd say I had a bit of trouble with because something did happen in their comic. There was a marriage at the end of this one, it was between Gambit and Rogue after their aforementioned mini I discussed in a previous video. What sinks this one to being just as bad as the Batman one is that everybody saw this coming, and how it followed a pretty similar formula with ramping up, hyping up, and then collapsing. Especially when Marvel started advertising Mr. and Mrs. X, which ramped up that other people were getting married or Scott and Jean were returning, but nobody really thought it would be about Colossus and Kitty. Why? Well, mutant marriages just aren't meant to last for some reason, so enjoy Gambit and Rogue while you can. Batman's marriage, if I had to say it, was the worst of the two given all the build-up, even within the landmark issue, and then nothing. We just get nothing. So there you have it. Marriages were the worst thing to happen this year. Well, almost, but more on that in a little bit. And now what you've all been waiting for. 2018. Best of the best. This year, I have to give my hat off to The Amazing Spider-Man. This series of the year for me was one that ended sorta earlier on. Dan Slott's final penning of The Amazing Spider-Man, and amazing is the best way to describe it, from the beautiful Alex Ross covers to the right-to-the-core writing. Some of the best Spidey stories are one which test him the hardest, and that tends to be a common theme as writers use threats to others as shorthand for spider drama, others being family and friends. But in this one, it was a full circle sort of gambit. The year starts off with Spidey finishing up a few loose ends and having an adventure with Loki the Sorcerer Supreme, but both issues hint at something much, much worse. Norman Osborn. Now, Osborn was cured of his insanity and goblin powers via nanites, but he still craves to crash Peter's life and press the Osborn legacy on. So how does he do it? Well, he failed when he tried to fool around a bit with some Picaria. Is that how you spell it? Say it? Whatever. So it looks like fooling with foreign nations is out. But if that doesn't work, what does Norm need? Well, whenever he's really hurt Pete, he was insane from the Goblin Serum. So Norm needs that insanity back, but he just can't get the old way to work anymore. What else? What else? There has to be something, right? Well, dang. Maybe... What else could drive a man criminally insane? Mysterio's illusions? Nah, that wouldn't work. He can imitate insane. No, he needs to be insane. Oh duh. Really, there's only one being crazier than the Green Goblin in Spider-Man's life. Carnage. That's right. What a way to end it all than to have Osborn don the symbiote of Cletus Cassidy. With the symbiote, Norman purges the nanites which prevent his serum from working, and then does the worst thing anybody can imagine. He combines the Carnage symbiote with the Goblin serum to become the Red Goblin, and becomes hands down the worst, most dangerous of Spider-Man's villains outside of multiverse-hopping bad guys. But it doesn't reach that intensity until after J. Jonah Jameson reminds us that he's truly the greatest villain in Spider-Man's life. After donning his old garb and tricking Spidey with a fake mortal injury turned to a horrifying reveal, Norman promptly beats Spider-Man to within an inch of his life and makes an ultimatum of letting Spidey and his family live if Pete never again dons the mask. Is Pete down and out? Obviously not, because we're talking about the world's most recklessly responsible superhero. Norman goes on and kidnaps his own grandson, viewing his immediate son as a failure, and then infects said grandson with some of the symbiote, and then goes to town on Spider-Man's life when Spidey-Man can't let the Goblin go free. Spidey-Man. But here we discover that Spider-Man's life hasn't always been bad, and he pulls his web tight for help from every corner of his life. Slott did what he did best here and draws upon the life of Peter Parker and Spider-Man to round up a classic lineup in defense of his life, the lives of his loved ones, and the innocent. And this is set against the backdrop of a Peter who is rebounding from a dark fall from losing Parker Industries and being outed as a plagiarist when Doc Ock used his own thesis to get Parker a degree when he was the superior Spider-Man, and combined with his love life falling apart and almost restarting with MJ just to have that fall down immediately, and double combine it with the semi-frustration of Agent Anti-Venom elbowing into his friendly neighborhood. You just get another day in the life for Peter Parker with this story. Ultimately, this story is about Pete and his reach into others' lives, including ones he sometimes considers enemies who reach out to join his comrades in helping defend his loved ones, even in how deep he spreads into Norman's life. And I really can't go any further. Now, even though I spoiled so much here, I won't spoil everything because the end is pure classic Spider-Man at its core between the drama, the humor, and the central tenets of Spider-Man's life concerning responsibility and how he must live up to it no matter what. With this title, Slott shows he knows no other way than to go down swinging. And honestly, it wasn't my favorite part of the series either, because Slott really left the best for the very last. He ends his run with a single-issue, self-contained Spider-Man story that I feel really speaks to the very true nature of Spider-Man and superheroes in general. We often forget that superheroes aren't just about punching people and getting stronger. Well, most of us anyway, some do. Some of us only read comics for that, and I guess that's fine, but superheroes aren't really about that. They're about us, people, the ones who need protecting. And this last issue wound up and slammed it out of the park with this very important focus. Spidey and the people around him will drone on and on and on about responsibility, and we understand naturally, but we tend to lose sight in some of the context in this. We know people die without these superheroes, but we just sort of treat it as a statistic. Hulk could kill more people, Thor could kill more people, Superman could destroy more planets, Silver Surfer can create black holes. Great, whatever, fine. But what about the people who live in those situations? How does it affect them? In what way would superheroes change their very lives by being there or not? Well, I recommend everybody, if they never read one panel of Going Down Swinging or any Spider-Man comic, they should read The Amazing Spider-Man number 801, titled There For You. It encapsulates why people love Spider-Man so much and how we perceive him and enjoy reading about him, even when we're not always thinking about it. I really mean it, I really do. Please do read that issue if you read no other comic this year, even The Immortal Hulk, no matter what, any other comic, Descender, whatever. Because in terms of superhero or non-superhero affair, it nails us as characters in a world we're fortunate to not need Spider-Man in, but we would be so thankful for if he were in our world. And so, that's it. That's the end of my best and worst of the year 2018. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a bit odd to start my channel with a best and worst list when you have no idea what I like or why, and you couldn't even guess. But I felt this was just as good a start as any, even if it's 2 months late. So stay tuned right here for more comics. Same Mac time, same Mac station.